Right now, though, I want to talk about a very pressing issue that's going on in our community, and it's an ongoing issue that we need to talk about on a regular basis. That being, of course, the issue of homelessness. There has been a number of programs that have come forward in the last little while to try to deal with this. There have been some very unfortunate announcements made by senior levels of government about inaction and sometimes a reduction of funding for some very necessary programs, which has put the burden on Hamilton City Council oftentimes. And I'm not so sure, from judging from some of the debates that have gone on, if they have a firm grasp, at least all of them anyway, don't seem to have a firm grasp on what needs to be done here and the role that we all have to play, which means that to have some of the work and some of the facilities in place that are needed in this community, there has to be fundraising going on. But you can do that in a fun way, and we're going to talk about that, too, with a program called How's the Weather, which is going to be coming up in support of Carole's Place in just a few minutes. But to talk about that, pleased to welcome into the studio a couple of guests who know a great deal about this, of course. Amy DeSchamps is the manager for transitional housing at the YWCA. Good to have you in here today, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
And Rabbi Hillel Lavery from Beth Jacob Synagogue is also with us. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
How'd you get involved in this?
Our synagogue has a project where once a year we put on a big fundraising concert to support a worthy charity here in our city as a way of giving back to our city. This is our third year now. The first year we did it for Taste Buds. Last year we did it for Empowerment Squared. And this year, when we were looking for a worthy cause, this was in the news and we knew some of the people and we thought this is where we want to put our efforts this year. Well,
it certainly is a worthy cause. And boy, having partnerships like this are so important, aren't they, Amy?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of times the population that we support, we worry goes unseen. So being in the media and having events like this to keep us front and center is such a crucial part of us being able to continue to find solutions. Just on
my introduction here about this, the lack of understanding, and I don't mean it to be in a vindictive way. I think out of sight, out of mind, a lot of this flies under the radar for a lot of people, doesn't it?
I think so. And I think particularly when we're talking about women's homelessness, we often talk about hidden homelessness and the reality that women survive in many creative and resourceful ways. And so that means that they're often not seen in the community in the same ways that perhaps men's homelessness is seen. And so unfortunately what that can sometimes lead to is sort of the lack of responsiveness and, like you say, the lack of awareness from community around what that looks like.
Well, tracking it is very difficult, though, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to get a handle on these sorts of things because sometimes those people are transient, forced to be transient. There's couch surfing that goes on, and they may not be a statistic. At the same time, though, it's very difficult to try to actually pin this down because the facilities themselves, and we'll talk about what goes on, of course, at Carole's Place and many other facilities around here, are very limited as to what they can actually do because of funding, really.
Absolutely. And I think when you speak to tracking the population specifically that is served by Carole's Place are those particular women that are hardest to track because they're the folks that are falling through many of the gaps that exist in our community. And so being able to provide a solution like Carole's Place that's sort of an innovative partnership allows us to connect with women that we wouldn't otherwise connect with so that we can ensure that we are capturing in some meaningful way the needs that they have.
How do you reach out to people like that who find themselves in this circumstance? I mean, let's face it, nobody plans to be homeless. And to add, I guess, the follow-up question, which I want you to address, because I get this all the time every time we have a panel discussion like this. Well, who are these people? And I said, it could be your neighbor. It could be you in 6 months. You don't know what's going to happen with your life. I mean, if there's one thing we know about life, it's just very unpredictable, and things can change rapidly.
Absolutely. And, we know that we're facing housing crises across the country, particularly in Hamilton. Market rent housing prices are skyrocketing and affects all of us. And I think that's really important. And thank you for acknowledging that. That's, it could be anyone. And I think we run into trouble when we start to try to pigeonhole or stigmatize folks around this is what homelessness looks like. When you ask about reaching out and how do we reach out, often, we don't have to. Women are lining up at our doors every single night. I think the reality is that this is the 4th year that we've had Carole Ann's Place, and we've seen those numbers grow steadily of folks that are accessing our service. And so that is often just through word of mouth. It's through dedicated commitment of all 3 agencies, Womenkind, St. Joe's, Willow's Place Mission Services, and YWCA Hamilton, and the workers that are providing that frontline support to be a service that women feel safe to access. And I think trust and safety is so huge in meeting the needs of this population. Without that, and being able to meet women where they're at, because these are some of the most complex folks in our community and most isolated, without that we wouldn't be reaching this population.
I'm glad you mentioned some of your other partners here too, because people need to understand if they're going to access this, or maybe know somebody, there's a network here. You people work in cooperation with each other, Materville House and so many of these other agencies. You're on the phone to each other all the time, you're talking all the time. If there isn't space at one, maybe they can accommodate you over here. And that's why it's so frustrating in a circumstance like this. I mean, we already know that there's one shelter right now that's probably going to go lose beds in just a couple of weeks because the government funding is up in the air right now, which makes these sorts of fundraisers even more important.
Absolutely. I think, the unique aspect of this service is, as I referenced, we're working with some of these women that have been chronically homeless for many, many years. That's one piece of our population. And then we're working with women who have fallen on hard times and we just don't have the spaces in the city shelters to be able to offer them. And so being able to provide this wraparound collaborative support is providing that holistic support for women who are experiencing really significant mental health challenges, perhaps addiction struggles, and providing that wraparound support from all 3 agencies that really can address each and every one of those needs is why it works well. We wouldn't be able to be successful in doing what we do without our partnerships.
Well, Rabbi, I got to tell you, I'm not at all surprised that Beth Jacob is involved in this. I mean, the synagogue has a reputation of community involvement and giving back to the community for years and years and years. You see that, I guess, every day, though, with your congregation and the extended family, of course, about how life can change so quickly, and these sorts of facilities are so necessary.
Yes, we are involved in that daily, and it is on the conscience of all of our congregants, members, and friends, as you say. Just months ago, maybe half a year ago or so, the Social Planning and Research Council did a social audit, and it happened at Beth Jacob. We had faith leaders and other community leaders come in and interview some of the people who are affected by poverty, homelessness, and so on. And we listened to them. I was one of the deep listeners. And we learned a lot from them, including the fact, like you mentioned, that you don't know where you're going to be 6 months from now. You don't know where you're going to be a month from now. We're all really a month away, one missed paycheck away from being homeless ourselves. And it's a reality that most of us don't want to think about, but we need to think about it. We need to help others so that if and when we need that help, it's going to be there for ourselves as well. Well,
I know that I know you talk about this, of course, with your congregation, but we try to do what we can here too. Is inform people about what's going on, and like you say, you don't know where it's going to go, but the numbers, the statistics, I think, tell a story here. I mean, we know that, for instance, there are many people in this community with addiction problems. Oftentimes, and people think, well, that's a choice they make. No, it's not a lot of the time. You can fall into that so easily, and I know you guys hear these stories all the time, I had surgery, I was on painkillers, I became dependent upon them, I can't get off, and your life all of a sudden starts going into a downward spiral. I mean, marriage breakups, job loss, there's so many things going on right now. You don't really know who's going to be knocking on your door this afternoon, do you?
Not at all. And I think that that's, the important piece around how women experience homelessness as well is that they face already unique vulnerabilities. So often, the women that we're supporting, when we are able to take the time to sit down and really connect with them, and I'm sure this was found through your audit as well, we're hearing stories that began of women who had, lives similar to yourself or myself, right? And through experiences of perhaps domestic violence, trauma, experiences of sexual assault, violence that compounds over time, often leads people to this, and it's not something that they envision for themselves. And then it's really about how do we ensure that we can build that safety net into our community where possible, which is through the community care that we see made possible through initiatives like this, and really spreading the word and recognizing that all you have to do is sit down across from someone and listen to their story to try to understand their experiences rather than sort of judge what you're seeing in the moment.
And Rabbi, as you took part in that listening session at the synagogue, and you hear those stories, there's no one neighborhood where this is happening. I mean, this is a community-wide problem. It's a Stony Creek problem. It's an inner city problem. It's an Ancaster problem. It's a Flamborough problem. It's everywhere.
Definitely.
So talk to us a little bit about what we're going to do. I mean, fundraising is such a key part to this whole thing, but when you can combine it with entertainment, you got a winning combination. How's the weather? Talk to us about the show, Rabbi.
So as we've done in the last 2 years, we have some tremendous participants in our concert. I must say that as much as our people in our synagogue are excited to participate and be a part of this show, everyone I turned to say, would you like to be in our show? Just about everyone responded favorably, and they're all volunteering their time to make this a really great show. We have participants from a number of dance companies and a number of musicians coming in. Eris Corpor's artistic director, Lisa Emmons, is going to be our MC and talk about the different acts that you're seeing. We have Singing Women, a women's choir that's going to perform. We have some really talented dancers from the Hamilton Conservatory for the Arts and from Canadian Dance Company in Burlington. And, of course, Mahasti, the Belly Dance Emporium's Eshe Yildiz and Faith Bond are going to be performing as well. And last but not least, Allegria Dance Company's Nicole Lamb will be performing some solo salsa worth seeing as well.
What I love about the program here is it's very reflective of the very mosaic of culture that we have in this community. You get a little bit of everything going on here.
That's right, and that's how we designed it.
And you were too humble. You didn't mention the Mixed Blessings, of course, who are going to be there as well. Some great voices and great people in this community, many of the names, of course, that we know. Yourself included, of course, Lila Miklos and Tom Bigas, so many other folks that are going to be involved in this. It sounds like it's going to be an awful lot of fun.
It will be.
Now, the date for the show is March the 1st, which is just a couple of days away, of course. Doors will open at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So the concert will start at 3. And you got a fabulous auditorium, of course, at the synagogue. But I would advise people to get there early because it fills up pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Definitely. And we also have some community people coming to sell their crafts and some food vendors and so on. And the proceeds from those sales also going to Carole Ann's place. So it's really going to be a full afternoon event. Fun for the whole family. Everyone should come. Excellent.
And again, congratulations to you and, of course, everybody at Beth Jacob for doing this on an annual basis. And I know that you're trying to spread the concern around and the help around because there's so many people that are in need like this. But this stuff doesn't happen unless we've got people like you and people like your congregation that support these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Good to see.
It's a privilege to be able to do so.
Well, as we've said, Amy, every time we talk about this sort of stuff, I want you to come in one of these days and say, you know what, everything's fine.
Right?
It's good. We got it going.
Right?
We're not there yet.
Our goal, working ourselves out of a job. That's our goal.
Well, this is maybe one step in that direction, and a great way to have a lot of fun this coming Sunday as well. Thank guys for coming in today. Thanks so much, and continue good luck.
Thank you for having us.
Good to have you. Okay. Rabbi Lavery, of course, and Amy DeSchamps from the YWCA Transitional Housing. And if you want to help out, just show up and buy a ticket and enjoy the afternoon, okay? Let me do a break. We'll come back after we do this. The Bill Kelly Show continues here.